Today we have two guest speakers joining us today. I've outlined briefly in an email to the Senate what the reason for coming today was. Just so you know, the Senate was told that this would be about the issue of the equity raises that you and I, the three of us, have talked about in the meeting with a couple of other people, as well as more broad budgetary questions that might arise. Some senators have submitted questions because they wish them to remain anonymous. Other senators will definitely ask questions on their own. And I do know we have some people here who are not senators. If you do have a question, just please tell us that you're not a senator, and we'll just ask for consent, and we have consent to allow you to ask the questions. But we do need to make note of that in the minutes, and because you're not a regular attendee, we don't know who you are. We have with us today Dr. Keck, president of the university, as you know, and Ms. Alicia Currin, who's the vice president for business affairs here at the university. I am going to ask unanimous consent that they be allowed to present for as long as they would like to, and dispense with the 15 minutes.
Never tell people that.
I always do that. Without objection, we will.
First, thank you for the opportunity to come. It only happened once last fall. I thought that wasn't enough. The things we talked about were very interesting and enormously important, and I didn't have a sense of what happened afterwards. So I'm glad we're here today. Before we start, could we just run around the room and everybody say who you are and what you teach? I know most of you, but a few of you I think weren't here in the last meeting, and so could we do that? Just quickly. We've got some order.
So we'll just do that for you want it for everybody or just the Senate?
Well, I think everybody in the room.
Okay, that's okay.
Your name and what you teach.
Curtis Williams, astronomy.
Elvira Whiteville, criminal justice. Julia Ballinger, educational leadership.
Ginaldo Lopez, computer science.
Gracie Brunell, social work.
Benjamin May, social work.
Annette Taggart, applied sciences.
Charlotte Larson, higher education, learning technology.
Greg Lubiani, economics.
Sandy Hayes, library.
Rebecca Worley, theater.
Debbie Mahoney, I'm a film and technician program.
Gerard Huber, Department of Art.
Sarah Mitchell, health and human performance.
John Smith, history.
Susan Stewart, literature and languages.
Desmond Peters, psychology. Warner Rojas, PNR. Jason Davis, engineering and technology. Peace management.
Krista Grant, education leadership, and faculty of residence at Whitley.
Sociology, criminal justice, Willie Evans. Nate Templeton, education leadership. Daniel Kelly, music.
Nearly all mathematics. Peter Sarge, chemistry.
Curtis Jones, agriculture.
Ray Keck, Spanish literature. Not quite yet. I understand that there's some concerns, but I'm not sure exactly about what. So I think I would turn it back to you, Chad, and say, well, you want to either start with, if you want to start with a general issue. We understand it's budget and budget decisions, but exactly what part of it and how and so we thought we'd start with Alicia would go through in the broadest sense budget, but I'm not sure that's exactly what you had in mind.
Well, you had, I think I told the Senate that Dr. Keck invited myself, Jeremy Gott, head of the staff council, and then Hunter Hayes, who's the head of the academic department head council, in for a discussion and that was called by your office, deal with some, I don't know the right word to use, but some rumblings or whatever that are going on regarding.
I've heard rumors that there were concerns.
Right.
Okay, what are they? We'll talk about it.
We really hadn't, as a unit or a body, talked about them beyond that. We had heard that the academic department heads had been circulating some documents that they had found or had discovered. I mean to make that sound sinister. They just found them. And that they'd shared with me, and then I eventually did share with the Senate in regards to a number of fairly substantial raises that were received this fall from administrators, and then through private conversations, emails, and correspondence with the group body, I think a couple of issues have risen, some of which we addressed in our meeting, but the original reaction to that was, well, I heard President Keck say at a meeting that no one got raises this fall, this seems strange, and, just sort of the conversation that happened as a result of that. You shared with me at our meeting, both of you did, excuse me, that those adjustments were all equity adjustments. I shared that with the Senate. I told them by email, because we haven't met since then, since I met with the two of you, that that's what those were. I think that either wasn't satisfactory or raised other questions that people here have about larger salary issues, and so we haven't had a broad conversation as a body about that, so I think that's where we're at. And the questions I got, for instance, range the gamut, so I think there's some multiple issues that could be discussed. I would be happy to let members of the Senate pose questions if you'd like to go that route rather than a formal presentation. I mean, what's better for you?
I guess I'd like to know what part of this do you want us to discuss in general, where the money comes from, where the money goes, and how that happens? Maybe we start with that. And then any questions you have, I hope everybody will speak out openly. I certainly will answer without filters or there's nothing disrespectful about telling each other the truth. We certainly surely can do that. Isn't that what you tell your students every single day, that we want to teach them as citizens? Use your head, let your head override your emotion, and remain respectful. I mean, I hope that we can talk to each other following that basic general notion of how people exchange ideas. So please speak openly, honestly, and tell me if there's something you don't like. What is it?
Dr. Keck, let me speak honestly.
Oh, I have no doubt this lady will. There is no doubt whatsoever. I've heard students say that's her greatest strength. You always know the truth.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Barbara White. I'm here today on behalf of Janae, who is our faculty senator, until next month. We'll be the faculty senator. My specific question is that on September 12, 2017, you sent an email out to the faculty indicating that we didn't have that the Board of Regents approved a 2% merit pool that potentially faculty could receive because of our finances. And the question then became, okay, if faculty and the ones I know, I can only speak for myself, and the ones who shared it with me received maybe $500 when that money was received and deposited and taxes taken. And then there's Higher Education Administrative Accountability Report, which represents substantial raises, some in the range of $30,000 to administrative personnel. As a matter of fact, and on top of that, some of these same administrative personnel receive bonuses in the neighborhood of $5,500, and the fiscal year 2018 suggests that amount is somewhere in the neighborhood of $62,000, the ones all the way down that are reported here. And the long and short of it is...
What does it all mean? What's going on?
Yeah, we as faculty, as you recognize and said many times, we have a revenue generating part of this ship here in terms of these students. So with us being the revenue generating part, we want to know where's our
money?
Yeah.
Very good question, and a very fair question. Maybe we better start to answer it. We better back up and start with where it comes from, how we get it. Because if you don't have that cleared in your head, it's hard to go to the next step. Alicia, you want to walk through the pie chart that's right behind you up there?
Absolutely. And there are hard copies on the table if anybody wants a paper copy of this, but I just put it up there. You know, when we're preparing the budget, like we just finished the 19 budget, the first the first step in it Black Friday. So we're having to prepare the budget with some enrollment assumptions. So I haven't said that, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But basically, these are the sources for the budget, and I'm just going to kind of start at the top. So the state appropriations, about 25% of our revenue comes from state appropriations. You think that's a lot of money? It really isn't. Out of that, that's about $52.5 million. Now, our total budget's about $186 million. So 25% state appropriations. Of those state appropriations, $33.4 million of it is from formula funding. That's the hours that you guys are out there teaching, producing revenue for us. Those are, a base period produces it for 2 years out. We're about to start our next base period beginning in the summer. I know that's the famous flex entry question, or flex courses. That's why we delayed some of those flex courses, so that we could count that in our base period, so that we could get more money. It's really a strategic decision that we made to do that. The benefits are about $11 million, and we have some special items, about $2.6 million, and we have to pay debt service on some of our buildings, about $5.4 million. So, again, $33.4 million of that there for salaries. That higher education fund, y'all heard of key funds. Those are very restrictive funds. You can only use them for capital items. I used to always say I was the bucket lady. I had to make sure the money stayed in the right bucket. That money has to stay in the right bucket. It can only be spent for special things. But we get about $10.8 million a year in key funds. The big one, tuition and fees, and $95.2 million of our budget comes from student tuition and fees. When we did the budget last year, and we're talking about 18, the year we're in now, we set aside $1 million to fund merit. We had hope, but we put dependent upon enrollment. When we came to fall, our enrollment was down 3%. It was over $1 million. So we had a choice to make to either come out and reduce the budget, take away money from everyone, maybe even cut some positions, or find some other one-time money in our reserves that we could use to fund a one-time merit. And we made the decision to do the one-time merit. We really thought that would make everyone happy, because at that point it was going to be zero or one-time merit. It kind of backfired a little bit. I understand the commitment. Everyone felt like that was the lack of a commitment. I don't think that was the case, but I think we're open to hear that. But basically, we would be short $1 million in our budget because the enrollment went down in the fall. It's down 5% in the spring. It's really going to be a little bit worse. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to fund that shortfall in enrollment. But you can see here the student enrollment is a major funding source in our budget. Going on around contracts and grants, 2%, student financial assistance, that's going to be like Pell, federal money. Gifts, we only get about $1.6 million a year in gifts. Sales and services, $19.3 million, and that's basically housing, rental, and sales of food meal plans. Investment income, we get almost $3 million a year to fund the budget, and other income just miscellaneous, about $225,000. So again, you can see the tuition and fees is a big one. When we did the budget, we said dependent upon enrollment. This is the first year in several years that our enrollment took a dip. We've just progressively been going up, able to commit those funds, but this year we took a dip in enrollment, and that's why we did the one-time merit.
And if you look up at the state appropriations, the blue and the gold, very appropriately colored. State appropriations, that formula funding, that depends on what you teach as to how much you produce. Now, that's a gross way to say things. I don't like that kind of language. I mean, we're all in it together. Everything everybody's teaching is of equal importance. We can't have a university minus this or that department. But the fact is, the state of Texas weights certain areas much heavier than others. If you teach in nursing or engineering or business, every hour you teach a student is worth a whole lot more to the state of Texas than an hour somebody teaching Spanish, English, political science, history, art. That's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Down under tuition and fees,